Thank you, Bishop. Good evening, Citadel family. I am glad to be with you on tonight. Let's go ahead and dive into the Word. If you would please turn your copy of God's words to Matthew, the 8th chapter. We're going to get started around the 5th verse. And what I want to talk to you tonight, encourage you to recognize God's authority in all things. That's recognize God's authority in all things. So like I said, we're in Matthew, the 8th chapter. If you would, let's start reading at verse 5. When Jesus returned to Capernaum, a Roman officer came and pleaded with him, "Lord, my young servant lies in bed and paralyzed and is in terrible pain." Jesus said, "I will come and heal him." But the officer said, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come into my home. Just say the word from where you are, and my servant will be healed. I know this because I am under authority of my superior officers, and I have authority over my soldiers. I only need to say go and they go, or come and they come. And if I say to my slave, do this, they do it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed, turning to those who were following him and said, "I tell you the truth, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel. And I tell you this, that many Gentiles will come from all over the world, from east and west, and will sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and will feast in the kingdom of heaven." So what I want to talk to you about is recognizing God's authority in all things. The one thing that stuck out to me during this pandemic is the fact that authority has different ranges and different levels. Governors can only go, mayors can only go so far with their legislation, opening and closing and dishing out rules, as so far as they are limited by a governor. The governor is only able to do certain things. He release certain things or make certain laws or approve certain things only as far as he is given by the president. And even though the president is a commander-in-chief, he still has limits to his power. He has checks and balances, and he has things that keep him in line to make sure that he does not, his reign does not turn into a dictatorship or is bad for the people or doesn't serve his own personal interests. But what I want to encourage on you tonight is that God has sovereign power. God's authority cannot be usurped, neither can it be controlled, because God has authority over all. There's nobody that sits on a throne above God, giving God order, saying that he can only move so far. The first thing that we realize in the text is that when the centurion came to Jesus, and Jesus came to Jesus, he had a need. He had a need, and he needed that need to be met by somebody he knew that was above him, or that somebody that had the ability to do so. When we come to God, we come to God because we have that need. But more importantly, we come to God because we know he has the ability to remedy the problem or to fill the void or whatever it is that we come to him for. And that most of the time we take prayer and we resort to this to the last resort because we have exhausted our own physical resources. We figure, well, the only thing that's left for me to do is pray. That's the best thing that you could have did, and honestly should have been the first thing that he resorted to. But when he begged Jesus to come to the house, the first thing that the officer said was, "Lord, I don't need you to come to the house. The only thing I need you to do is just say the word." And bringing a little bit of culture into this, we realize that one of the main reasons why the officer came to Jesus did not invite him into his house because he was familiar with Jewish customs, knowing that if Jews go into a Gentile's or into a Gentile's house, they are ceremonially unclean. Luke says that the centurion sent messengers ahead to talk to Jesus because of his own unworthiness towards the Father, but towards God. But here in Mark, we see that he went there to himself. In verse 7, when he says, "I will come," reading on, but the officer said, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come into my house where you are, and my servant will be healed. I know this because I am under authority of my superior officers, and I have soldiers beneath me. I only need to say go, and they go. So he is an officer, a soldier that recognizes what authority is, being that he is in authority himself and being that there's an authority over him. He sees Jesus and he recognizes that this is a higher authority, even higher than himself. While mayors, governors, and presidents only can control the physical, they can only legislate social distances, they can only put in orders, stay-at-home orders, they can only tell people to wear masks. They have authority over the people and over their government, but the only person that really has authority over this pandemic, the only person that really has authority over the pestilence and disease is Jesus. The soldier came because he did not need people to move. The soldier came to Jesus because he did not need servants to serve. He came to Jesus because he needed Jesus to heal. And he asked. He didn't command Jesus. He showed much reverence to the authority of God because he realized, though I may be in authority, there's another authority, and only that authority can help me. He says that if I say to a soldier, go, that soldier will go. And if I say to my servant, do this, he would do it. All I have to do is say the word, and it'll get done. So he's coming to Jesus to get Jesus just to say the word, because he knows that Jesus is the only person that has a command over the sickness. If we had the faith of this centurion, we would be able to do just that. Just say the word. Just say the word. Say the word and finances will be straightened out. Say the word and bodies could be made whole. Say the word and churches will be able to grow and prosper even under the strenuous circumstances. Just say the word. The centurion had just as much faith in his own, as he did his own authority, that if Jesus said it, he had the same amount of faith that Jesus had this same authority, if not more. While men can only command men, it is God that can command the unseen. It is only God that can break generational curses. God is the only one that can cause pestilence, that can cause viruses to raise. So while we may be citizens in this country and we are subject to the governments of rules, we are more importantly ambassadors and citizens of the kingdom of heaven, and we submit to an authority that does not need to be checked, nor balanced, nor controlled. God is totally sovereign. If you look now in Isaiah 45, starting around verse 6, so all the world from the east to the west will know that I am God and there is no other. I am the Lord and there is no other. I created light and make the darkness. I send good times and bad times. I, the Lord, am the one who does these things. Open up, O heavens, and pour out your righteousness. Let the earth open wide so salvation and righteousness can sprout up together. I, the Lord, created them. What sorrow awaits those who argue with their creator? Does the clay pot argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with the one who shapes it, saying, stop, you're doing it wrong? Does the pot exclaim, how clumsy can you be? In other words, God is saying that no matter what goes on this earth, I am the one that is in control. So a lot of times, and I've done it myself too, have been in situations, trying to reason with God, being the pot, arguing with the pot maker. No, God, that's not how I wanted you to fix it. See, I need this amount of money to hit at this amount of time, and then I need these people to give me grace in this area so I can actually pocket some of the blessings that I've been asking you for. But we're not the ones that are in control. We are the ones that are subject to the one and only sovereign God. God is the author and finisher of all things. This is not saying that God caused corona. This is not saying that God caused pestilence to come on your life, because we know that the Bible says that God does not tempt and cannot be tempted, nor will God, also that God is light and there is no darkness in him. But we are told that during temptations, we are to seek wisdom, to try to figure out, Lord, why am I going through this? Oh Lord, what is it in me that you are trying to accomplish? What Carl Frederick are you trying to see on the other side of all of these trials? But through all that, I still have to realize that whatever goes on, God is in control. I remember reading, and I can't think of the philosopher name at one point. Somebody said to him, if God controls everything, if God has the power to do everything there is, if he is the one that sets forth things in motion and calls them to stop, then what's the point of praying? The philosopher then replied, because God is the author and finisher of all things, because God controls all things, because God set things in motion and can stop them, is the reason why I pray. If we recognize that God's authority supersedes and rises above all else, our faith would jump in the middle of everything. If we realize that no matter how much our president can legislate and control things, he does not have control over the virus. He only has control over the people. But thank God for Jesus, because of his sacrifice, because he was wounded for our transgressions, because he was bruised, because his stripes are why we heal. His stripes is the reason why he has authority over the virus, over sickness, over death, over all things. So while we may depend on our leaders to open things up for us, remember that the main person that we should have faith in, the main authority that we should seek after, is God's, because God is the one that has control over the seen and the unseen. God is the one that has the authority over things that can't be touched by man. I will not be healed because the president told me so. I will be healed because the Creator, the one who has authority over all things, will heal me. The centurion knew that while he may have control over the servant, Jesus was the only one that had control over his paralysis. So while we're walking by faith and not by sight, the government may have control over the stay-at-home orders and the regulations and social distancing, but only God can bring forth the pandemic. God has the authority and the ability to wipe corona, to wipe swine flu, to wipe the bird flu, to wipe pox off of the face of the earth. This is the person that we go to and pray, because we know and realize where the control is. I thank you all for allowing me to share in this encouraging word with you, and I hope that I gave you something that lifts your spirits. Remember, in all things, God has the authority. Amen.